Hey everybody, Arnaldo here broadcasting from Fidelios Frequency. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another episode of the Smiths miniseries, The Sun Shines Out of Our Behinds. As you probably noticed from the artwork behind me and from the title of the video, today we'll be talking about The Queen is Dead, but under a different light than all the other videos that I have been presenting, where I would get into more of the facts and the music and the history behind the releases so far or commemorating an anniversary. This time in this video, we'll be talking about the best pressing, the best sounding pressing of The Queen is Dead. So cue the intro and I'll see you in a bit. Before I get into sharing my thoughts and my opinion on these various pressings, I'd like to preface one thing. I may have mentioned it in the past on other videos on my channel where I have done like mini shootouts, but I'd like to repeat it one more time that these are just my preferences. It's very subjective. It's my personal taste. I auditioned and I played all of these albums on my system in my music room, and it could all change. Should I listen to the same pressings in someone else's room on someone else's stereo system? So please take all of this into account when you watch this video. This is just my preference, and there are no absolutes, right? Yes, some pressings are clearly benefiting the music contained on the album, more so than other pressings, but that again could be very subjective to me and how I've been listening to this record for almost 40 years. And what's most important is that you do listen to The Queen is Dead. And also, I actually wanted to add that the reason why I'm doing this is because various other comments, either on social media, on my Instagram, or on my Facebook, or even on my channel, various members and users have commented asking my preference on any specific pressing in general of the Smiths. And I thought this would be, The Queen is Dead would probably be the best example to start off with because I own so many different pressings. So let's get right into it, and I'll tell you exactly which are the pressings that I have and I listen to. So the pressings that I listened to and compared, let's start off with my very first pressing, which was the 1986 UK pressing. This one is, I believe, a pressing that came from the pressing plant in France, MPO. Next up is the US first pressing. I also have a German first pressing on green vinyl. Then I have the version that was included in the mega box set, The Complete Smiths, which pretty much had everything by the Smiths in there on CD, on vinyl, 7 inches, everything, the whole 9 yards. And I believe this is the current pressing, or at least the pressings that are being made now come from those same plates. And that is the 2012 Remaster. And I also have the commemorative box set, Deluxe box set version of The Queen is Dead. I believe it was commemorating the 30th anniversary, so it came out in 2017, almost like a year later, with different artwork. So the first two pressings that I compared were two first pressings, namely the 1986 first UK pressing on Rough Trade. And this is a copy that I've been listening to for almost 40 years. This is how I first listened to it, and this is how I had listened to it for such a long time, repeated probably hundreds of listenings. And a recently acquired, near mint, I was actually quite shocked to find it in this condition almost 40 years later, first US pressing on Sire Records, that is, from 1986. And the way I did the comparison was to listen song by song, first on one pressing, namely the UK, and then listen again on the US pressing, and then go back to the UK, and then go back to the US pressing. So I probably gave each song a listen, two listens probably, compared, just to make sure that I was hearing things correctly. And as I got through the whole album, I started to notice the same traits, the same characteristics between the two pressings. And here's what I was able to, the opinion that I was able to form. The first pressing, the first UK pressing, to me, the most important, the most glaring difference between the US and the UK is the presence of Morrissey's vocals. On the UK pressing, I find that his vocals are blended in with the remaining orchestration or instruments, the members of the band, in a more natural way, versus the US pressing, where it seemed to me where his voice was a little bit more upfront and had a little bit less body, a little bit less heft, maybe. I don't want to say really heft, but there's more air around Morrissey's voice on the UK versus the US pressing. There's times, and especially on the track I Know It's Over, where Morrissey's voice on the UK pressing has almost a 3D quality. You could sense or almost feel how it's presented within the room or the studio that they were recording, versus the US pressing, where his voice seems to be a little bit more upfront. The UK pressing has a bit more bottom end. I noticed that on some of the drums, and where they sound a little bit fuller. On the US pressing, maybe they're a little thinner, but I have to say that the most difference that I heard was on the track, besides I Know It's Over, on the track, the last track of the first side, which is Cemetery Gates. It's a very critical, I learned after listening to various pressings, it's a very critical track because of the placement on the side of the record, and because of, I guess, the mixing or the instrumentation. On the US pressing, I noticed that there is so much sibilance on, or inner groove distortion maybe, on Cemetery Gates that I did not find on the UK original. And overall, I would have to say that sometimes the US sounds a little shrill, sometimes the strings that are in the background sound a little mushy. Not sure if that's the right term, but not as clear and balanced as on the UK pressing. So, between the US pressing and the UK pressing, I have to say that the UK, I prefer, or the winner is, the UK pressing. So next up, I compared the more recent reissue, the one included in the complete box set and the one that is currently in print, the, let's call it the 2012 remaster. This remaster was done under the supervision of Johnny Marr himself, along with Frank Arkwright, and I believe it was done at Abbey Road. The description of the box set states that it is sourced from the original masters. I'm not 100% sure whether it is an all analog cut, the 2012, or whether it was transferred to a digital source and then mastered. So again, comparing side by side, a UK versus the current reissue. Track by track, same type of methodology that I used in comparing to the US. I have to say that the reissue actually sounds very good, not quite as good as the original UK, and here are the differences that I spotted. Versus the US first pressing, where I said that Morrissey's voice seems to be a little bit more upfront in with respect to all the rest of the band and the other instruments. On the reissue, it seems to be more in the same placement in terms of the UK pressing. It has great bass, although maybe not as punchy as the UK version. It has heft, again, that word. It has very almost beefy bottom end. It makes me wonder if they just tweaked the knob a little bit to make it sound fuller, but the effect is actually quite good. Again, critical tracks, I know it's over, does not sound as 3D. You do not hear the reverb on Morrissey's voice, the presence within the room where actually he's located. You don't hear the air around his voice and the instruments on the reissue as you hear it on the UK, where again, it sounds almost a 3D presentation on the UK first pressing. I will say that it excels in the symmetry gates. Like I mentioned before, the US pressing had sibilance. The reissue does not. It's actually very nice. It's quite polished. If there's one adjective that I would use to describe the current reissue, is that it maybe is a little more polished compared to the UK and to the US. So, sorry to say, my preference, the UK pressing still wins over the reissue. Although the reissue can definitely hold its own, I want to say that I prefer the reissue to actually the first US pressing. Next up was the first pressing, the first German pressing that I have is actually on this deep green, almost hunter green vinyl, colored vinyl. And I did confirm that the green vinyl version uses the same plates. It's the same type of lacquer and pressing as the black standard version. So no confusion, hopefully no issues because of the colored variant. So then I compared the German pressing, not to the UK, because I felt like I already acknowledged how important the UK pressing is, and probably I'm already seeing down the line how this is going to end. So I compared it to the reissue, and I compared it to the US first pressing. First of all, for being a first pressing, I was a little disappointed. The US pressing, to me, apart from that sibilance in certain areas, which I don't find on the German pressing. The German pressing is very precise, it's very clean. Maybe it is a bit more balanced compared to the US pressing, but it's flat. The soundstage is narrower, and for me, the German pressing actually ranks below the US pressing. And now the final pressing that I listened to, and that is probably the most recent remaster, the one from the box set from 2017, and with different artwork in black and white, different back rear photo, and the inside, the inner gatefold is very different as opposed to what we saw here in all the other versions, where that's the rear cover and the inner shot with the Smiths and the lyrics. On all the other versions, it was altered here on the reissue. Obviously, and it's probably also a different shot from, yes, it is a different shot from that very same sequence of the film with Alain Delon. Artwork, supervised, of course, by Morrissey. Very tasteful. I love the reinterpretation. So let's get to the sound. Well, let's put it this way. Apart from the reinterpretation of the artwork, which I really like, there's nothing in this pressing that would warrant a purchase. I was so shocked. At the time when I bought it, I never really did a comparison to the UK pressing that I had or to the other reissue that I had. But in comparing it, I think I listened to maybe 3 songs when I compared this, and I had to take it off. It's quite appalling. Dan Hirsch and Bill Inglot remastered this, and I'm very disappointed. It should have been better. It was in, let's call it an anniversary, super deluxe edition. And I don't even know why they took the time to remaster it in 2017 when the 2012 copy sounds very good. It sounds compressed to me. It's just I don't like to use the words hot mess, but that's what it does sound like to me. If there is one version you should avoid, and it's probably the most expensive one because it comes in the box set, is the reissue from 2017. The only reason why you would want to get the 2017 Deluxe box set is because, yes, you get a really nice box that actually adds 2 more albums. And that's the reason probably why, because you're a completist of the Smiths, or because you love this album, or because you're just, crazy like me, that you would go to the extent of buying this box set, because there are, like I said, 2 additional albums, 2 double albums. One called Additional Recordings, and here's the rear cover. And this is because it collects some demos, a full version of The Queen is Dead, and not faded as it is on the original album, and a plethora of B-sides, 4 actually, some of the best B-sides the Smiths have ever made: Rubber Ring, Asleep, Money Changes Everything, and Unlovable. And in addition to that double album, it also has a Live in Boston album. So now it's time for the ranking. And again, I'll repeat this. This is totally subjective. If you haven't probably noticed by now what my preference is, the UK first pressing from 1986 on Rough Trade, for me, is the best sounding version of this album. Followed by, it's a tie in second place, but for different reasons. There's elements that I like of both of them, so I'd put them both at number 2. The US first pressing on Sire Records, as well as the current reissue. Maybe, it depends. It depends on what you prefer. That you may want either the first US pressing or the reissue. Third, or let's call it 4th place, because we've already talked about 3, is the German pressing. Yes, I was a little disappointed, but hey, in reviewing all 5 of these, I'd have to put that one as 4th, because in last place, please avoid, unless you are a completist and unless you want the additional material, the 2017 Deluxe box set. And finally, to wrap this up, whether you enjoy it on cassette, on CD, or on a vinyl format, The Queen is Dead, my favorite album by the Smiths, should be enjoyed, should be a record in your collection. And that wraps it up for this episode of The Sun Shines Out of Our Behinds. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the series with your likes, your comments, and all the other videos, for supporting the channel, watching my other videos, for subscribing. And yes, never forget, it's free to subscribe. So click that subscription button, the like button, the down button. But more importantly, tell me your thoughts on The Queen is Dead. Tell me your thoughts on any of these pressings if you have them. And I hope to see you again on my channel on another episode of The Sun Shines Out of Our Behinds, as well as on other videos that I will be publishing on my channel. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.